Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day two of the Hearthstone Masters Tour World Championship. We are just partway through today. We still have several more matches to go. So, to bring you our next match, I am Dragon Rider, joined this time by Edelweiss. And Edelweiss, yeah, we've got some top four action coming up next.
Yeah, very excited to see how this all plays out. Of course, we no longer have the perfect play group of Rekfem, Pocket Train, Meaty, with Meaty taking the 0-3 to CJ as Pocket 3-0'd CJ earlier. So I think CJ's feeling a little bit better, with the momentum behind him now. But Rekfem, the one of that play group who did opt for a different lineup just because he was worried about getting targeted in groups, and has got this warrior that could be a kind of sticking point for him. There is a possibility going up against CJ that he could once again sort of out-armor the mage's potential damage. But yeah, we see here just, he's got that Nature Shaman, which has been a sticking point for some, as well as the Demon Hunter that has been a sticking point for others. So it might struggle a little bit, but, I think he was feeling very good after the group stage, and I'm hoping he can kind of keep that energy going through the rest of today.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a little bit interesting to see kind of how these different lineups pair up here. We have seen so far Rekfem go 6-4 in games this weekend. So even if there is maybe some potential sticking points, we were kind of talking about maybe one of these decks does struggle. Overall, he has had a very good win rate, went 2-0 with the Warrior so far, was able to kind of cruise through that upper bracket. So we'll see if that Warrior continues in that trend. I am very curious to see the Warrior specifically myself. So let's take a look at that Warrior deck and look at I guess one of the talking points that we've had a lot over this weekend and yesterday especially was this kind of Reno deck and the inclusion of duplicates. How many duplicates is ideal? What do players want? And I think here Rekfem really has gone for some of these just absolute best tools as duplicates. Trial by Fire, I think specifically one of them. But Prison of Yogg-Saron and Reno have been some very interesting cards that have kind of been showcased a lot yesterday. So I'm curious to see if that also trends in this match.
Yeah, we see he's gone for, two ofs for Shield Block, which at least draws, Blade Storm, which is one of the cheaper but powerful removals, Bellowing Flames, just, I think, one of the best cards available to control Warrior presently, and of course Craftsman's Hammer, great for early board control, or once you have Odin going, Trial by Fire, since the buff has been a completely insane card. So I can definitely respect having two ofs all of these. I just was surprised that we weren't an entire deck of two ofs, that you'd bother going for Reno at all. But Rekfem's kind of proved the point that, like, hey, it's not a Reno class baseline. It doesn't have, a warrior legendary dependent on Highlander, so you don't need the hero online immediately. And sometimes Finley can help you to sort of right the ship a bit. And while this Warrior seems like it would be one of the harder decks to get through, he's managed to go 2-0 with it, so.
Yeah. Well, I know somebody else that might want to challenge this Warrior deck, and that is CJ, who we're going to see on the other side, because we have really kind of seen his more Reno-style decks, and that Mage that you mentioned earlier, kind of be powerhouses almost in yesterday's matches. And he obviously did also do very well in the previous series that we just saw. So taking out Meaty in that decider match to move into this match here, as we see, wow, I am actually really excited for this match because I feel like uh, the kind of trajectory that Requiem was on yesterday could continue today, but also I think the trajectory that CJ has had through yesterday and then today, he's kind of has the momentum in his favor, I feel like. So I'm really curious to see this. And on the other side, this Highlander Reno Druid deck that we are looking at for CJ, that definitely was part of that amazing final game yesterday. Do you think it's going to come down to one of these like Highlander decks like we just showcased Edelweiss, or is it going to be maybe the Demon Hunter or the Shaman that become more of a sticking point that CJ just has to get through those?
So, for CJ, the Demon Hunter has actually been banned. So he's working with the Druid, Rainbow Mage, and the Pure Paladin. I think, Requiem maybe just not wanting to deal with potential early blowouts available to the Demon Hunter. And since his Warrior, can take a little bit of time to get on its feet, feeling like he has a bit more chance against the Paladin. I was, maybe a little surprised to see this Druid going through, because I would think that would be the tougher deck for a deck like Requiem's Warrior. We could have a long one, basically. if it comes down to, Warrior versus the Highlander Druid, I think we could be in this for quite some time, just because there's a lot of back and forth tech cards. You can get a big Ignis weapon, but then it gets vipered away. Of course, the Highlander Druid can, play Fizzle to shuffle in all of its high power cards, and sometimes Prison of Yogg-Saron just take things into a very strange direction. So it should be a very exciting series, but it could honestly go in all kinds of directions if it really comes down to those Highlander lists.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one as we are getting ready to get into game number 1 here. Again, Requiem versus CJ. This is our first semifinal match, our first top 4, and we are not going to be seeing either of those Highlander decks to start. CJ is bringing in that Paladin first, which I don't know exactly how these players are queuing, but if he decided to just pick that, then this seems like a good choice. The Paladin has been banned across a lot of games this weekend, so just bringing that in to start seems solid. And he's got a pretty solid hand as well to go into this. Can coin into a Hi-Ho Silverwing and then follow up with Hand of Adal if he wants to, but Requiem getting that turn 1 mistake, and also has a Sharpshooter in hand.
Yeah, I mean, I think if someone leaves you a Paladin available, you just play the Paladin. That's sort of how it goes this weekend. Coining out this Hi-Ho Silverwing, I think, is, in fact, because CJ would like it to die and bring up the possibility of pulling Boogie Down, which is just an excellent tempo tool. We've heard it likened to things such as... Oh gosh, blanking on card games now. Used to cost 4 mana, then cost 5. Recruited 3 2-drop minions. Help me out here.
Yeah. You got me. Like as soon as cards go to wild, they're out of my brain. Or I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's all we need. We just need the description. It's fine. I certainly agree, though, and I like the follow-up play by CJ as well of just saying, yeah, okay, well, even if I did want the Hi-Ho Silverwing to die, draw into that Boogie Down, no, it didn't happen. That's perfectly fine. I'll just play the second one. And on the other side, we did see Requiem get to have a little bit of Discover there. The Glaive Smith going to be able to provide a little bit of armor, and it's not a Naga, though. I think one of the best Discover options could definitely be one of those Sages to provide some discounts, provide a Naga, but unfortunately not going to find it. And still no other Naga coming into hand for Requiem as well.
Yeah, I think if you either get your 2 mana discounting Naga or the 2 on Outcast that reduces the cost of your next Outcast, those can both help you on that eventual pop off turn. And yeah, we're doing great on card names. We remember what cards do, but rarely the names. I have checked though. Call to Arms was the one I was thinking of earlier. Call to Arms,
There
of
you
course,
go.
a staple in even Paladin back in the day, but eventually got nerfed to 5 mana. Pulled 3 2 mana minions out of your deck. Boogie Down, somewhat similar, comes down to turn early. 3 mana pulls out 2 1 cost minions from your deck. So it's been pretty insane power level for as long as it's been available, with Paladin basically hanging on to 6 1 mana minions in all of its pure lists because of Boogie Down.
Yeah, Boogie Down, very strong card. And I think, especially in combination with a lot of the other tools that Paladin has, like this deputization aura that's on the board already as well, and in combination with things like the keeper strengths or just these other buffs, but still not finding it. And instead, CJ just had to kind of go in, go for a hero power, get something on the board. And now we're seeing Requiem being able to go in on the uh, sharpshooter turn because he finally drew another Naga. So he can go in on that here, start popping off with this turn. And for Requiem, not much on the other side of the board. So this sharpshooter turn has been able to start to deal a lot of damage so far. Cleared off the couple of minions that were on the board. And wow, he picked that so quickly from the dispose. We didn't even get to see the actual animation come up
Yeah, it
discover
was
options.
the
But
Sigil, which, while a card that can be great for refill, I think Requiem recognizes that, like, hey, it's an expensive card, it's a slow card, and I'm going to need to end this as quickly as possible if I want to have a shot here. Unfortunately, CJ has Paladin's perfect response here in Showdown plus Prismatic. Can even, take the opportunity to trade into 3 attack minion with the deputization aura here before playing the second Showdown, just to be able to gain more life from that aura.
yeah, and I really like this kind of slow, methodical, just thinking through these decisions. Yep, and definitely doing that play that you suggested, right? Going in, taking advantage of this deputization aura. And I know deputization aura is also another one that players have talked about a lot in terms of the strength of that card as well. And even though we've talked a lot about Boogie Down and the value that that adds to the Paladin list, it adds to the board and the consistency of the deck, perhaps, it's panning out pretty well for CJ regardless, without even having that, because of the other tools he's been able to put together in his hand.
Now, this I actually find kind of interesting. CJ has held back the second copy of Showdown rather than opting to just jam it out, discount the beam, second beam, or sorry, one beam. There were 2 Showdowns, 1 beam, and has just paid the extra mana for the beam to hold on to the Showdown. I'm not entirely sure what that's a nod to. Maybe there's the potential of, if there were another sharpshooter turn, then at least Showdown would be something that could be used, in combination with the Keeper's Strength for a board clear. But Tier, of course, is decent enough refill. Getting another Hi-Ho Silverwing and one of those Outlaws.
Yeah, I do also wonder if maybe CJ's felt potentially a little bit safer because he had capitalized on so much of that healing from the deputization aura, that saying maybe I don't need to commit that showdown and I can save it for that second sharpshooter, as you mentioned. There's no longer a prismatic beam to pair with it in hand unless he can draw into that, but there is also the keeper strength. So
Right.
the showdown and keeper strength can kind of do a little bit if he really needs to clear up some extra health Nagas or something as well. But I don't know. I think he might have felt a little bit more safe and feeling like he needs to kind of reserve some of these tools after the previous turn.
Well, and this is the major reason, right? Had he just gone full jam the second showdown, those 3/3s would have trivially died to the going down swinging. So that's a bit of a difference between CJ Kaka's Demon Hunter, which got banned, and the one that Rekfem is playing. Is there is a bit this ability in the mid game to say, okay, my opponent made a board after my one sharpshooter turn. I'm going to clear some things away with going down swinging. That being said, of course, CJ able to now with the discounted Garden's Grace just get a massive refill of stats, and in particular taunts in the way with the finale from Boogie Down. If that Jitterbug doesn't die early on in the sequence either, then he's going to be drawing quite a few cards here.
Yeah, lots of draw for both of the players. And this is one of the points that you were talking about as well, where because of that Boogie Down, he was able to kind of combo a lot of stuff in the same turn, put a lot of stats on the board, and Rekvim has to work through a lot of this here on the other side, even still trying to work through all of this after playing so many cards. There's a lot on the board for Rekvim now that CJ can come back with, but there's nothing left on CJ's board now. And that's kind of what the Paladin wants with the Keeper Strength and the other Garden's Grace in hand. You ideally would have liked at least one minion to live to send all of that into that minion and be able to push for lethal, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, CJ looking at the horn draw and feeling, so close, but with just 2 damage off and no ways of buffing his character's attack. It is going to be just the Hero Power, Garden's Grace, and of course, card everybody loves, Keeper's Strength, which has certainly been a powerful tool in Paladin's kit, making it possible to swing the board multiple times between Showdown, Beam, and the Keeper Strength. So Falarin the Forgotten gonna have to pull something big here, and it doesn't. Don't even get to see. Rekfem saw and determined it was not good enough.
Yeah, as you mentioned, a couple of the cards that are different between the Demon Hunter list that Rekvem, Pocket Train, and Meaty all brought is they have those added draw mechanics. They do have that Falarin and the going down swinging, but still, even with added draw, with added discover, with added generation, not enough to combat this Paladin. But I don't think any of us are really surprised at this point, right? We kind of just, if the Paladin's up, we're going to expect it to get played, and we're going to expect it to probably get a pretty quick win. So even though the maybe beginning or mid of the game didn't necessarily go how CJ may have wanted, with not finding the kind of early Boogie Down, he still was able to put a lot together, was able to stave off a lot of that damage from both of the sharpshooter turns and then clear the board afterwards both times. So it just kind of came to, well, at this point, I don't even need to push tons of damage with a big minion. I can just stop what my opponent is doing, and now the Demon Hunters run out of resources.
And it really comes down to that one of Deputization Aura that acts with Showdown as a full heal for the Paladin. I think had that not been the case, then even with all those board clears, Rekfem could just get over the finish line with damage from hand. But with Showdown Deputy just acting as a former Reno Jackson effect, sort of healing CJ almost entirely up to full life. At that point, it's very challenging for the Demon Hunter to, push through without getting additional damage from board, and CJ was just clearing turn after turn.
Yeah, well, that does. Well, oh, we just got some added info, Edelweiss, that 5 games of Paladin.
No, not a Paladin. Just 5 games that CJ has won in a row. Yeah. Some of which were quite grueling from last night. So I believe it was a 2-2 series last night before that final, hour-long Druid game, which means
Yes.
that CJ reverse or nearly reverse swept his opponent and then had 3 wins today. Is that right? Not quite. I think that means 2.
Well, he 3-0'd.
Or he 3-0'd Meaty, then this
Right.
win, and then the win at the end of last series. That's
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Still, very impressive 5-0 streak. You talked about momentum.
Ending the Paladin.
That's about as
Yeah.
good as it gets when it comes to momentum going into day 2. Rekvim, I think, getting to have the relaxation, the break of not having been playing as many games as recently as CJ. But, sometimes when you just feel like you're on a roll, that can be, just as powerful as being refreshed.
Yeah, it can also potentially lead to mistakes too. If you feel too confident, there can be that kind of playing too quickly or just kind of committing to things. And that's why I think that CJ is actually in a really good spot. I talked about this in one of the other games that we've already seen, right? CJ is just kind of, even with that momentum, he has to be feeling pretty good, but he's still taking a lot of his decisions pretty slowly, thinking through things. And I think that that's going to be incredibly helpful for him. But we're also at the World Championship. So these players are no stranger to multi day events, long hours, to having momentum or not. And I'm definitely not counting Rekvim out either, especially with a pretty decent start here with being able to get the mech down early here. That's going to continue to get some discounts. Maybe not the most powerful or discounted hand currently for Rekvim, but some tools that he can work towards. You mentioned already that going down swinging and just drawing immediately right into Sigil of Time on curve. Well, that's that's going to help.
Yeah, and if not enough, great tools are drawn, it may just be the Fellerin next turn for Rekvem. This is something that the Pocket Meaty and Rekvem list has that differentiates them from the rest of the field here in their Demon Hunter is the ability to just sort of play other stuff in the mid game when you don't have your sharpshooter. So if we get no card draw, it would have been nice to be able to play both of those momentums potentially. But very notably, this Wolf discounted and in outcast position, ready for next turn. And, that's just a ton of stats to be getting down on turn 5.
Yeah, and especially right after we just saw the top deck cold case coming down on the other side as well, because that's a lot of stats that now Rekvim can say, okay, well, I'm going to trade into these skeletons, and if the damage goes into these other stats, that's fine. But there's a lot of stats to potentially soak up these skeleton hits and still keep a decent-sized board as well.
Yeah, he really almost, wants the damage to go face to keep these healthy.
Yeah.
I think it's just wondering, do I play a Naga here and Predation this last one to keep the other wolf healthier? What resources are sort of worth using or not using here? I think when you don't have the sharpshooter, you're always sort of loath to play Dispose of Evidence because it can shuffles another card in your deck that is not sharpshooter to top deck. So just opting to use the Slither Spear and Predation to take out that last 2/2 and spread the damage out here somewhat.
Yeah. And it almost feels unfortunate for Rekvem that he played that Slither Spear and then the immediate skeleton death rattle damage went right into it. But he does at least have the wolves, which are good damage, but the Slither Spears can just add and stack so much with all of the spells that can potentially be played in one turn that they can outpace the 6 attack. So it's potentially pretty unfortunate for him that he did get that. But CJ has a very nice clear for those wolves, but not really developing anything and not really doing a whole ton in terms of working towards creating his own tempo, and that does mean that Requiem could potentially do whatever he wants on his turn, which what he wants is sharpshooter, and it is still not there.
Yeah, I think question here of hero power versus the minion, and Requiem at this point sort of knows, okay, well, my deck has forsaken me a bit. I need to eke out every little point of damage that I can, squeezing in the hero power. I've got a lot of from hand damage here. Have the potential for going down swinging to keep him from getting counter pressured. So it's just going to try and go the distance with the damage that he knows he has access to. Or Solid Alibi is going to throw a wrench into those plans somewhat.
100%. And not just the solid alibi that got immediately casted, but also a solid alibi that gets put
Oh
into hand as
no!
well. Uh
Oh,
Healing.
holy spring water.
Yeah. I really don't know how Requiem can come back from this game unless he gets a massive pop-off turn, but it's going to be several turns still. It's going to have to be very delayed and not on a turn that a solid alibi is up. And at that point, the mage is happy. I think the longer this game goes, the longer that CJ can find tools like solid alibi and generate healing, and kind of force Requiem to use a lot of those resources before potential pop-off turns.
And this is where, I feel like I must have cast a curse or something, because just looking how this is playing out, I mean, discovering the healing, even a solar to potentially use with the healing, but that's not even necessary. All this armor off of the Artificer, and just, no end to resources in sight, not even playing that additional alibi just yet. CJ, I think at this point, when it's turn 7, you have the read that your opponent would have to top deck Sharpshooter because they don't have it in hand. So just, playing out more stuff, and Requiem has to deal with this Artificer, and that might mean that a going down swinging is actually coming out now.
Yeah, I mean, the hero power going down swinging does answer it, but at the same time, there's there's a secret now. Does he have to play around this? What is his game plan with the rest of his mana outside of that? Is it really the turn he wants to commit the going down swinging? Because also there's a momentum in hand. There is other damage as well. And does he actually have to save some of that, I guess, stronger attack plus the going down swinging for a turn where CJ is going to fill the board with elementals?
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing about CJ's list versus some of the other mages we saw. There's no excavates. It's just sort of the old-fashioned, keyboard and elemental inspiration list. So I think the going down swing is being reserved for that elemental inspiration, just to be able to deal with those 4 or 5s. I think some relief here, seeing no reborn or divine shields. So it is going to be just, momentum and going down swinging could take this down. I wonder if he even tries to go for the Naga pop-off turn at the same time. Maybe not.
No, I don't.
Just take this clear.
Yeah, I think the clear is just too clean, and removing all of this off of the board should allow his sharpshooter turn to be a little bit more damage towards face, is the kind of game plan, right, that he's aiming for. Gonna clear this now, and then I can do a sharpshooter turn, just pop off next turn. I'll have the full 10 mana that I can capitalize on. He's got 0 mana mistakes, and he can kind of just go in on it next turn. But this turn, he gets to clear. He gets to just make sure that he's also not dead, because that was a lot of attack on the other side. But yeah,
there's a solar here and some snake oils, and as well as the natural causes, and that Sif top deck is just going to end it. I do wonder if there was potential to sort of start the turn with Dispose of Evidence for Requiem, and then do that into the going down swinging. If you are able to throw back one of the mistakes, or even the momentum, honestly, then you can do your sharpshooter pop off after you have destroyed the entire enemy board. So you've got a clean board, everything's going to be going face. Probably just seemed a little bit too risky with, the mana being sunk into the going down swinging. Thought that might have been a potential lethal if Rekfem had decided to sort of risk it for the biscuit on the dispose.
Yeah. And okay, we just talked after that last game about it being 5 games. Well, that is now 6 games that CJ is at, and we're going to see if he can make it 7. It's going to come down to his druid at this point. And as Raven and TJ were talking about in the last series, if it does at this point, is Rekfem going to be able to actually win 3 games in a row to complete a reverse sweep here? And even if he can, I mean, the odds are stacked against him. So it's going to be a huge uphill battle. And you can see there just all of the impressive finds that CJ was able to get in that game to just keep stopping Rekfem's game plan. And on the other side, I'm sure CJ feels great, but Rekfem probably not so much. These last couple of games have felt quite rough for him. The deck really not working for him as well as he wants. And even though there's maybe not the most ideal draws on the other side from CJ, again, this is Worlds. CJ is clearly showing he knows how to play these decks. He knows to make what choices he wants to make, even if he doesn't find the optimal cards or options that you can say. I think you and Sottle talked about that yesterday in terms of like Splish Splash Whelp, right? Yes, it's a great card, it's a great mulligan option, but what happens if you don't find it? And we might see that happen in this next game because CJ does have to play that druid, but man, being down 2-0 and having to fight against this has to feel rough.
Yeah, and this is where you just gotta, take it one game at a time. I think Rekfem deciding, well, let me get the hardest matchup out of the way first here, at least in my mind. That's how I would think of this one, because this is certainly going to be the longest one. And while the other decks can, potentially get some quick wins or potentially lose to themselves, this one intends to go a long game, and Druid is good at the long game. So we may be here a while, Don.
We might. That is for sure. But at the same time, I also see a coin Splish Splash Whelp into some other kind of mid-game minions, and that might provide a lot of initial damage if Rekfem can't find enough to stop a lot of that damage from happening.
Splish Splash Whelp, of course, I think upwards of 60% in win rate, and Take to the Sky is a great tool to follow up with the draw. I think the only thing CJ wishes he had here was more ramp, but Summer Flower Child, the number 2 win rate card in Druids for the most part. Rekfem, it does get to discount the Trial by Fire, which is pretty huge, as I imagine that's going to be his big clear going for next turn. They are undead, so if any of them stick around, he'll be able to draw 2 cards off of the Roaring Applause.
And I know you talked a lot yesterday, too, about this fizzle. We really saw the fizzle in that last game, and those photographs. It gets picked up here while there's a Raystraza in hand, while there's a discounted... I don't know if it keeps the discount, actually, but the ANR in hand, the Prison of Yogg-Saron, there's a ton of value and a ton of different things that can happen with this hand here for CJ. And picking up the fizzle just adds to that. Yeah, going for that Theatar here. Wow.
Yeah, and Rekfem doesn't have too many cards in hand. There is no Odin. I think that's the number one thing that CJ is worried about, is should things go into a longer game. And Rekfem does have Odin. That could present a problem. Possibilities of Ignis giving a Wind Fury weapon and the Odin armor just creating an OTK. But not in the hand presently for Rekfem. A lot of times, if you don't have it as a warrior, what you'll actually do is on turn 9, play Finley to sort of flip your hand upside down and hope that you can play the Odin on the other side. So I'll be curious to see what CJ would steal, although you kind of have to deal with this Titan first.
Yeah, but he's not. He's actually just going to put something on board, and Rekfem can continue to use that Titan now. But I don't know if there necessarily was uh, the greatest. I guess CJ would have had to kind of commit the Phi to clear that, which is that something that he wants to use later uh, when he actually does want some healing. I don't know. I agree with you though. I kind of feel like trying to clear off the Titan probably was good.
And
but
here we go.
All right.
So wanting to make sure the Titan's removed, and so actually targeting it instead of targeting the face. There's one more shot here, and that's not going to do it, but the 1 damage is just enough for Phi to finish it off, not with too much health remaining though. And I think this gives Rekfem the luxury of playing the Odin on 8. I think that's one of the strengths of, Trial by Fire and having Titan and other stuff. Doesn't go for it though. I'm a little surprised, to be honest.
I do wonder if he just kind of wants to clear that board. But
are we going to see a Theo for a Theo? Oh, this is why. The secret,
wouldn't
right?
be the first time.
So the ETC was checking for objection, right?
Right. Also to note as well, if anybody didn't catch it, that Prison of Yogg-Saron did cast Order in the Court. So it did put CJ's deck in that highest to lowest, which is why now we're immediately seeing the Yogg being drawn. Which one does he take? Does he just take the Theatar, or does he actually want to go for taking this Odin?
I think you get it out of the way, right? I mean, so there's the possibility of it getting stolen back with the Theatar, right? But yeah. CJ has the board, right? With the A&R refresh play from that Order in the Court, it really puts Rekfem in a position where he can't afford to play a Theatar. So I wonder if maybe he should have taken the Odin right away. Because now Rekfem, A&R doesn't deal 5 damage itself, so he could just play the Odin and use the weapon to clear up the 5/5. Take the additional 7, hope that the location doesn't kill him, and try and stabilize from there. Sanitize plus shield block in hand, so there is an ability to clear the follow-up turn. Just has to be willing to leave up A&R for another turn. Wow. Okay. So we've tucked Odin now. And activated Reno. Not going to remove Rheastra's location, but it will remove the prison.
Okay. I wanted to bring this up. I'm so sorry. I was just looking at the deck list thinking, okay, there is multiple Highlander cards in hand that are not active for CJ. How many of the rest of the cards have been drawn? Because the only duplicate now for CJ, there's only the 2 copies of duplicates, right? There's 2 Splish Splash Whelps and 2 Nourish, which we saw the Splish Splash Whelp early on. And yeah, a lot of the higher top end has already been drawn for CJ. So the immediate next draw is that second copy of Nourish, which does mean that those Highlander cards are active now, which is pretty important because if there were more 6-7 cost things, it would be a while before CJ were able to use those. But at this point, does CJ actually need to commit to some of these things? I think maybe Yogg, this other Theatar, might be more resources that he can use sooner and kind of wait on those Highlander cards.
Maybe, but I mean, Rheastraza is just a ton of value over time. People joke that it always gives you Alexstrasza the Lifebinder for that extra damage. And now he knows that Odin has been put on the bottom of Rekfam's deck, so he isn't going to have to worry about that clock. Has just seen Reno, and I think
Yes.
there's no potential for Rekfam to get a second Reno, so the portal is going to be safe. Rekfam just trying to create as much pressure as possible to dissuade something like Rheastraza, but that just means I think we're about to see the counter Reno coming down.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting turn sequence here as well, because if he goes for the Reno, as you mentioned, not getting the Raystraza down, but because the Astalor specifically as well, if like you don't want to play Reno on the turn where they're going to play that final piece of Astalor as the only body on board if you don't have anything on board. So he could have gone for the Reno there, removing everything, and him not having his own board, but Rekfam just having to play that second Astalor piece. But instead, yeah, going for that added value of the Purified Nest.
Yeah, and I really respect that. I mean, CJ just saying, okay, I know this can't get Reno'd away. I'm just going to jam it. This isn't that much damage you have in play. It's honestly sort of what I would have liked to have seen from Rekfam when CJ went for stealing the Theatar instead of stealing the Odin. Is, if Rekfam just gets that Odin down, and it means the times when he is, gaming armor to stabilize or to play sanitize, he can be pushing damage face. So we'll have to see how this ends up playing out. Getting the Astalor 5 in place does mean that if Rekfam is Reno'd now, he's able to just play Astalor 8, which is kind of exactly the thing you want in that situation.
Right, yeah, and that's why I was kind of in maybe the camp of going for the Reno the previous turn instead of waiting till now Rekfam has that exact scenario. But there is still the Yogg Saron as well, so I guess if CJ wanted another potential board clear, you could just go for that. He's not dead to the Astalor either here, so even if Rekfam just goes ahead and goes for the Astalor now, all face, right? CJ still has some life to work with, and there's this forbidden fruit. There's armor from the Frost Lotus, potentially more armor or life gain from this Ignis that's been picked up. So maybe it's okay now if Rekfam just wants to go for the Astalor.
And one nice thing about going for this sequencing, even though that 0 mana refresh 4 crystals could have been really nice for CJ, he's just throwing it out here as 5 additional health to soak from the Astalor. And he's got the Yogg Saron follow-up to now steal this Astalor and present a ton of counter pressure. There's the snapshot, which is just filled with very, very high value cards. That is part of that reason that I really felt like we needed to put the pedal on the gas as the warrior and try and start getting those attacks in.
And the cage head.
Sure. I mean, why not?
Add more. Yeah. Like let's just go for this. It's a really interesting death rattle though, because this kind of limits Rekfam a little bit in the terms of what removal he wants to go for now. Because if he just tries to go for removing the smallest thing and then going for Blade Storm, maybe that answers, but is that enough in conjunction with whatever else he has? I do like the line of maybe just clearing that. Does he have to commit a lot of these resources, though, for all of this board? Because it's going to be a lot of stats he has to chew through here.
Yeah, I mean, the minion that comes out of the cage head is a 9/9. The charge won't be relevant because it'll be Rekfam's turn, but yeah, he's gonna have to hero power it down and then follow up with I think it's got to be the sanitize. That really nothing else will do here. Reinforced plating, pulls a rock, and then sanitize, clears up the board, clears up his own minion that got summoned, and yeah, being on the defensive is not really where you want to be when your opponent just has pretty much limitless value.
Yeah. And the poison or the life steal we saw there in the options for CJ. The secondary options maybe not the greatest, but now we're seeing this stolen Theatar coming down to
He's
steal
gonna take
something
prison,
else
right?
here.
After
Yes,
last night, of
yes,
course he
he
does.
does.
Uh, Notably, I think what CJ was looking for with taking a 1 mana weapon there instead of a high value 10 mana weapon was to combine with this forbidden fruit here, the 0 mana, spend the rest of your mana crystals, gain that much attack for twice as much armor. Can be combined with a Wind Fury weapon for just 22 attack out of nowhere. So pretty notable that CJ did whiff on the Wind Fury for that 1 mana weapon.
Yeah. And then on the other side, we also saw Rekvim just top deck, finally get back to that Odin that he put in the bottom earlier. So if there is now some armor generation, that could be a lot of damage that Rekvim can still put together as long as he's not dead. But the poison going to quickly and easily clear up the Odin itself. So that does also mean Rekvim has to find more of that armor, more of these tools, and continue to rely on these kind of additional things in hand that he has. But as you said, there's also just so much value for CJ in the cards that he had already, the cards now he's taken from the double Theatar. He's now got his own Astalor he's working on. I just, there's so much going on for CJ or in CJ's favor that this has really kind of just felt like an incredible struggle for Ekvim.
Yeah, and one of the disadvantages to being this sort of mildly Highlander version of the deck is that Rekvim has used his only Sanitize, which is one of the better removal tools available to Warrior. There is a copy of Brawl sort of standing in for that other 5 mana board clear, but not in hand presently. Could be trading for it, but 1 minion still going to remain up, and you've got an Astalor 8 headed your way for 14 damage. So I think he's going to be wondering, like, hey, do I have to just go for a lifesteal weapon off of the Ignis? Can I try and pick up Wind Fury and do something crazy there? Just how is he going to be able to piece together a clear? There is a potential for Rock on the 2/2 and then Blade Storm. Would clear up a fair bit, or the free hero power and then Blade Storm. Yeah, and then it is going to be that Trial by Fire, build up some stats to soak the potential Astalor 8.
Yeah, and I think another potential argument for kind of just working towards a game plan like this and not going in on the Ignis quite yet, or at least something that both players have to consider is both players are running a copy of Restaurant Viper in their decks. So
Yep.
if Rekvim wants to try to go for that game plan of, okay, I've got the Odin played, now I can try to go for an Ignis, maybe get that Wind Fury weapon you were talking about. The chances at this point in the game with how large the hand size is, how close to the end of the decks they are, that the Viper is just sitting there waiting for that weapon to come down are incredibly large. So Rekvim has to have all of the setup with being able to play the Ignis, play the weapon, and potentially have armor stuff ready to go in the same turn. And that feels difficult.
Yeah, and we see here CJ just still playing the Astalor 8 alongside all these free 4 mana dragons. He's been trending towards the low end of mana cost just so he can play other stuff during his turn and to have free stats to put in play. Just anything to force Rekvim to focus on clearing rather than actually pushing any damage. There is the Brawl now available, but potential to get unlucky in terms of the hit of what survives. No Blade Storm to kind of make up the difference.
I really like that point you bring up, and I think that kind of just speaks to almost like just fundamentals of Hearthstone, of card games, of like matchups
Oh
where CJ.
no!
Oh wow, that is so unfortunate for Requiem. Definitely not the one he wanted to live there. Now
I mean,
has to commit an uh, additional removal there on a single minion.
had it been, the best case scenario, the 3/4, he could have at least equipped the Craftsman's Hammer and started attacking face, but
Yeah,
it's always Alex Strauss with a Lifebinder, that final Discover to end the game, and I feel bad. I feel like a bit of caster curse, but CJ, just the momentum is insane. That is now
yeah,
back-to-back 3-0 against Meaty, 3-0 against Rekfem. CJ is just coming back with a vengeance against this playtest group. After losing to Pocket 3-0 the previous day, I think he's maybe sort of just got their number now.
yeah. I am very excited to see how it's going to play out for the rest of this now. But congratulations to CJ on that pretty decisive win there. And I think he just played it incredibly well, too. Again, as we were kind of talking about at the end of that matchup, CJ just kind of recognized that he was in the driver's seat of that game, that he was moving with the not only the cards that were given to him, but kind of just that game plan of, hey, this warrior will have to make a lot of decisions of that can I clear everything and do my own game plan? Probably not. Most turns are going to be one or the other. And I think CJ had a lot of turns that he just capitalized on that and said, well, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to force you to have to just keep my board under control and not do your own game plan. And I think he also had that same recognition in the Demon Hunter as well. So seems like CJ, like you said, kind of has it on lock. Very well played. And even though Requiem really did try to keep those boards under control, he played as best he could with the cards that were given to him. Also, that Demon Hunter just not working for him. We have an amazing update here as well with some of these class stats, Edelweiss. Demon Hunter now has a 39.13% win rate in this tournament this weekend. That is
the second most brought deck as well. Right, with Paladin being number 1, Demon Hunter is the number 2. I think it's tied class-wise with Druid, but the Demon Hunters are much more similar to each other than the Druids. So that's really something where I wonder if players are maybe regretting the decision to bring this deck just because it has that potential to lose to itself. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a little bit more hope for like Requem's list and Pocket Trains myself, but that can only go so far. That hope that it's only going to last for a little bit. And let's go ahead and look at what else we have here for today. So we have seen these decider matches. We have seen now CJ taking another decisive 3-0 in that first semifinal. We still have one semifinal to go, and we'll be finding out who will be facing into CJ in that grand finals match. So still a few more games to go. I can't wait to see the Pocket Gyu game. I don't know about you, Edelweiss.
Oh yeah, I mean, Gyu is, I think, my favorite lineup-wise in this event. It just sort of has the most streamlined game plan. We're aggro, he's sticking to what he knows. A little surprised to see he didn't bring in Rage Warrior, perhaps, instead of Demon Hunter, based on what we've been seeing. But it's very well built. But if I have to do a rebuy on my pick here with Requiem now eliminated, I'm kind of pulling for CJ because he's just riding that momentum high, and I think that smile on his face there was just the realization of, oh, that was the semifinal. I'm now in the grand finals. It's first or second from here on out, and that's a little bit faster than some of our previous World Championships that might have had 16 players. Here, it was a long day yesterday for CJ especially, and to then go 3-0, 3-0 and realize, oh my god, I've done it. I'm in the grand final. I mean, what could be better than that?
Yes. Well, we have one more semifinals to go before we get to that amazing grand finals. So these matches are just getting even more intense. You definitely don't want to miss these. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back.